Yeah, I spar big guys. That's why I'm starting thinking like, man, I probably can be great. I probably can be great, you know what I mean? But, it's different in the fight. But I believe in my skills and my ability, and I believe in my team. I believe we'll come up with something that,
Canelo has shown in his last few fights that he's just a businessman. He's not in there to entertain the public. He just takes the big.
The boxing world stands on the brink of a mega clash. Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez. One is an undefeated virtuoso known for his laser-sharp timing and ruthless ring IQ. The other is a Mexican icon with world titles across 4 divisions whose resume speaks volumes. But now, with Crawford vowing to knock out Canelo, the narrative is flipped. This isn't just about belts anymore. It's about pride, legacy, and who's still got the hunger. As fight talk intensifies, legends and insiders are weighing in, and their perspectives are painting a fascinating contrast of greatness, decline, and desire. Let's break it all down. Quote by quote.
Yeah, I spar big guys. That's why I'm starting thinking like, man, I probably can be great. I probably can be great, you know what I mean? But, it's different in the fight. But I believe in my skills and my ability, and I believe in my team. I believe we'll come up with something that,
In an honest moment with Joe Rogan, Terence Crawford opens up about sparring with bigger fighters and what that's done for his confidence. He's not bluffing, he's strategizing. Crawford believes not just in his power or speed, but in the process, in the team behind him, and in his evolving ability to solve puzzles inside the ring. He acknowledges it'll be different in a real fight, especially against someone like Canelo, but there's no hesitation in his tone. He sounds like a man who's convinced greatness is within reach and who's preparing to prove it against one of the sport's most decorated champions.
Canelo has shown in his last few fights that he's just a businessman. He's not in there to entertain the public. He just takes the big.
Bob Arum doesn't mince words when he says Canelo Alvarez has turned into a businessman. That kind of criticism cuts deep, especially coming from a promoter with decades of experience. Arum's point isn't that Canelo isn't skilled, but that his hunger to entertain has faded. He's chasing checks, not challenges. If true, that plays perfectly into Crawford's hands. Crawford isn't just looking for a payday, he's chasing legacy. And if Canelo is truly in cruise control mode, then a younger, hungrier fighter like Terence could outwork, outthink, and eventually outfight him.
If they're each going to fight, really fight, I think it's terrific. It's very interesting. But again, if I had to pay money to watch that fight.
Arum doubles down by saying he wouldn't even pay to watch the fight unless both men come to truly fight. That sounds like a challenge directed squarely at Canelo. Arum knows Crawford never phones it in. He brings intensity, grit, and finish-the-job mentality every time, but he casts doubt on Canelo's current mindset. When a fight promoter openly questions a boxer's willingness to engage, it speaks volumes about perceived decline. For Crawford, this is opportunity. He's entering with a chip on his shoulder, while Canelo may be protecting a brand. That's a dangerous contrast.
But again, if Canelo really fights, because I think safe to say Terence always fights. He doesn't know anything else. So then it could be a very good, interesting fight.
The contrast sharpens further when Arum clarifies Crawford always shows up to fight. Always. But Canelo? It depends. That reliability is what gives Crawford an edge. He's the kind of fighter who treats every bout like a war. You know what version of Crawford will show up? The cerebral assassin. But Canelo? If he chooses to coast or retreat, especially under pressure, it'll tilt the momentum toward Crawford quickly. And Terence won't waste a single moment if he senses Canelo's foot off the gas. That makes this clash as much psychological as physical.
Now, the Canelo we've seen the last 2 years is not only boring, but doesn't really have an incentive to mix it up and to entertain people with a good fight.
The question lingers, which Canelo will show up? Bob Arum makes it clear that it's the only uncertainty left. Because if the version that comes to collect a check appears, then Crawford may dominate. But if the prideful warrior version returns, the one who dismantled top contenders and fought across divisions, then we're in for a real fight. Arum's respect for Crawford is evident. He calls him special, but his skepticism about Canelo's motivation puts the pressure squarely on the Mexican icon to show he still has fire in his belly. Arum takes it even further, calling Canelo boring over the past 2 years. That's a bold accusation for a fighter once celebrated as the face of boxing, but it's not just about entertainment, it's about effort. He says Canelo hasn't shown the same incentive to mix it up. If true, this could spell trouble. Crawford thrives on activity, chaos, and dissecting stagnant opponents. Canelo has to bring more than name value. He has to bring real urgency, because anything less, and Crawford will exploit the passivity with a violent precision that can end fights.
I'm still going Canelo. Even with that performance, I almost feel like Canelo fights
You're
up.
a big size guy right there.
Yeah, and he fights up to his guys in terms of if there's a real threat in front of him, we're going to see a better Canelo. He hardly even broke sweat for Skull. Canelo is younger than Crawford, bigger than Crawford. They're both great boxers. Crawford didn't look great against Madrimov. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm edging to Canelo.
Adi Oladipo brings a different flavor to the table. Despite concerns, he still edges toward Canelo, noting how the Mexican tends to rise when the stakes are high. There's truth to that. Canelo often saves his best for the brightest lights, and this fight, against someone as respected as Crawford, might awaken the beast. Ade also notes the physical advantages. Canelo is bigger, younger, and naturally stronger, but styles make fights, and Crawford's style is designed to neutralize size with movement, angles, and timing. If Canelo's motivation peaks, it'll be a war. If not, Crawford's IQ could dominate.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah? Oh, wow.
It wasn't just the fact that he couldn't cut the ring off. I just feel like the timing now, the age, Canelo is amazing. I mean, not just because of his ability and what he's accomplished, but the fact that he still has the desire for those training camps and those fights. But I just feel like that desire might be fading a little bit.
Eddie Hearn adds his insight, analyzing Canelo's recent performances with concern. He suggests the desire might be fading, especially after the lackluster outing against Skull. While Canelo still has a legendary resume and technical brilliance, Hearn senses a drop in urgency. Training camps are grueling, and when the hunger fades, the body follows. This is where Crawford has a mental edge. He's still fighting like a man possessed. Every bout is another chapter in his legacy. If Canelo's fire isn't burning at 100%, he may find himself a step behind against Crawford's relentless precision.
I'd be surprised if he retired and actually didn't fight Crawford, because I don't think he'll want to lose to Crawford, a much smaller guy, just because he's at the end of the road. But the fight's so big and the money's so big, he's gonna have to take it.
Hearn goes deeper, suggesting Canelo may even retire before facing Crawford. The implication is powerful. Canelo might fear the humiliation of losing to a smaller man more than the allure of a paycheck. That says a lot about Crawford's threat level. This isn't a walk in the park. This is a high-stakes gamble that could dent Canelo's legacy. Crawford, meanwhile, is all in. He wants this challenge. He wants to take down the bigger name. And if Canelo hesitates, even mentally, that's the crack Crawford needs to break the dam wide open.
Come on. I like Crawford. I like Crawford then, I like him now. I liked him before Canelo looked not so good in his last fight, obviously. I thought it was going to be... I just think Crawford's real special. I think Canelo's really good. Really good. But I think Crawford is...
Teddy Atlas makes a firm distinction between really good and special, placing Crawford in the latter category. For him, Crawford's talent doesn't depend on who he's fighting or recent events like Canelo's dip in performance. This opinion isn't reactionary. It's rooted in Teddy's long-term assessment of Crawford's abilities. While he acknowledges Canelo's greatness, he views Crawford as possessing something extra, a unique edge that's rare in boxing. That speaks volumes, especially from someone like Atlas, who's trained and observed fighters across multiple eras, Crawford's perceived special quality is what makes this clash against Canelo so compelling.
No, he hasn't fought the resume everyone wants, but you have that or you don't have that ingredient. I think he has it. I see it. The timing, the instinct, the eyes, the ability to be chilly cold, not just cold and calm, but chilly cold, where you can see things other people don't see and react.
Eddie continues his praise of Crawford by focusing on something more profound than stats, the intangible ingredient. He talks about the instincts, the timing, the cold, clinical mindset that allows Crawford to see and react to punches before others even register them. That icy demeanor, described as chilly cold, is what separates good fighters from generational ones. Atlas sees that killer instinct in Crawford, something that doesn't show up on paper but always shows up in the ring. Even without the perfect resume, Crawford's internal traits make him a formidable force against anyone, even Canelo.
Had a week to digest it. I just want to get your early thoughts. Las Vegas, Nevada, Allegiant Stadium, Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez at 168 pounds. Let's just hear your early thoughts and your preview for this mega fight.
Atlas digs deeper into Crawford's greatness, tying it to his background, his mindset, and his deep-seated hunger. The key here is that Crawford's fire hasn't dimmed. It fuels his training, his discipline, and his mentality. Atlas points out that these traits, not just physical skills, are what define elite-level greatness. Crawford didn't arrive at this level by accident. His journey, his struggles, and his upbringing forged an iron mindset that Atlas believes is the foundation for what could be a legendary performance. In a fight where legacy is at stake, that kind of internal fuel could be decisive.
They thought I was whatever. Come on. I like Crawford. I like Crawford then, I like him now. I liked him before Canelo looked not so good in his last fight, obviously. I thought it was going to be... I just think Crawford's real special.
Speed and power can be matched, but Atlas circles back to the intangibles that elevate Crawford. He doesn't pretend that moving up in weight is easy, yet he still leans in Crawford's favor. That's telling. His belief stems from the way Crawford processes the fight game, his ring IQ, timing, and ability to adapt. Teddy openly admits he picked Crawford from the very moment this potential fight was announced. For him, Crawford's ability to rise to the challenge and outthink opponents regardless of size makes him the favorite. Those are rare qualities in this sport, especially at elite levels.
React to it just... I know he didn't have a great performance when he moved up to 154, but he was fighting a good fighter. He was fighting a guy that fought a very difficult style at that moment, and he was fighting at a weight class that was foreign to him, and we had to give him a minute. Nobody wants to give anyone a minute in this business. You're supposed to be great, you got to be great.
Eddie now turns a critical eye toward Canelo. He questions whether Father Time has finally caught up to the Mexican superstar, or whether it's the comfort of wealth that has dulled his edge. According to him, Canelo's latest performances lack that old urgency, the one that made him such a feared fighter. He's not saying Canelo doesn't have the skill. He's asking whether the fire still burns bright. In a fight against someone as hungry and sharp as Crawford, even a minor drop in intensity could be dangerous. That's the point Atlas is hammering home with this statement.
But I'll say it again, and you can get mad again, or you can agree again. It's up to you, whatever. But he's made so much money that the urgency's not there. The fire's not there. At least it wasn't there.
Atlas takes a bit of heat for his views, but he stands by them. He had called out Canelo's decline even before it became popular to do so, and now with more evidence piling up, he feels vindicated. Teddy's not anti-Canelo. He's simply observing a fighter who might be past his peak. He's doubling down, insisting that what once was difficult to say now feels obvious. In his view, Canelo's recent struggles don't surprise him. Against someone like Crawford who's hungry and peaking, this could be a dangerous cocktail of decline and complacency for Canelo.
8 years, 7 years. But then again, you can still make that argument. Okay, at the end of the day, I think I said this before people killed me, but I said it before.
Teddy wraps up his assessment with even more conviction. His faith in Crawford hasn't just remained, it's grown stronger after seeing Canelo's most recent performance. That's important because it shows this isn't a reactionary pick. It's the result of detailed analysis. Watching Canelo underwhelm only reinforced what he already believed. Crawford is sharper, hungrier, and more versatile. Atlas seems to be implying that unless Canelo brings back the version of himself that fought with fire and aggression, Crawford might have a clear path to victory. His confidence in Crawford is absolute and increasingly difficult to argue with. Terence Crawford's tweet isn't just a casual training update, it's a declaration. When he says, "I hear him talking," he's signaling that the noise, the predictions, and the doubts are all fuel. Feels good to be back in the gym means he's not just returning, he's reloading. It reveals a fighter who thrives on challenge and pressure. This isn't just about getting into shape, it's about transformation. Crawford seems to know what's at stake and is preparing like a man who intends not just to win, but to dominate. He wants to leave no room for doubt. At this point in the build-up, what becomes clear is that both men are living legends, but they're meeting at very different points in their careers. Crawford is rising into a new chapter, reinventing himself at a heavier weight class, while Canelo, for all his brilliance, may be slightly past his physical prime. But that doesn't mean the fight will be a blowout. Canelo still holds power, pedigree, and deep experience. Crawford, however, is the storm, sharp, prepared, and hungry. If he vows to knock Canelo out, it's not just talk, it's a mission with purpose behind it. As we step closer to one of the most anticipated matchups in recent boxing memory, it's impossible to overlook what makes this fight so magnetic. On one side, you have Canelo Alvarez, an icon who's proven himself time and again across divisions, armed with experience, timing, and calculated aggression. On the other, Terence Crawford, a generational talent, mentally icy, physically gifted, and spiritually fired up for the biggest challenge of his career. Canelo is special, no doubt, but Crawford is otherworldly in his own right. If legacy is the battleground, then this fight is its ultimate war. Buckle up, this will be history. Subscribe to Boxy Hub for further news.